Hey everybody, welcome to the Mother Figures podcast. I'm Katelyn Darkangelo, founder and co-owner of Figure, Midwestern wife, and girl mom. I'm a dual certified pregnancy and postpartum trainer, majored in exercise science from the University of Michigan, earned my master in management degree from Duke University, and have been coaching in the fitness industry for over a decade. This podcast dives into all things pregnancy and postpartum fitness, especially in how to navigate strength and intensity training in these seasons. Whether you're in it yourself, trying to get pregnant, or coaching this population, you're in the right place. I'm excited to share personal experiences, client stories, guest interviews, and evidence-based strategies to give you the guidance, insights, and clarity needed to navigate these seasons with confidence. And with that, let's get rolling. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mother Figures podcast. Today is actually my daughter Amelia's 4th birthday, and being 34 weeks pregnant with our second daughter has got me, thinking about labor and delivery coming up in a few short weeks here, but also kind of reminiscing on our labor and delivery experience with Amelia. And since this podcast is newer and it was 4 years ago that I had our first, I didn't really talk a lot in depth, I guess, about our labor experience. And so I wanted to make a whole podcast on the day Amelia was born and more on obviously the labor delivery side of things, because this is a pregnancy and postpartum podcast. But so I just wanted to, go through, I don't have any notes for today. I'm just going to wing it on what I remember. Obviously, it would have been better off talking about it right afterwards. But I also wanted to make this podcast because I feel like there is so much fear or like the bad stories and horror stories of labor. And I found that before my first labor and delivery experience, I wanted to only listen to positive ones to kind of get myself in a good mindset. And so if that is you also, I think hearing positive birth experiences and stories can be really helpful in just preparing you for labor yourself. So back in 2021, it's crazy. It's already been 4 years. I feel like I'm like not old enough to have a 4-year-old. But it kind of started at the 38-week appointment, and I got checked. I was already at a 2 at that point. And at that point, being at a 2 is good. It means something's happening, but it can mean nothing too at the same time. But I took that as, something's happening. Cool. Awesome. Then comes around the 39-week appointment. That was on Wednesday. She was born on Thursday. It's a little not in the story there. But Wednesday morning, we had our 39-week appointment, and she checked to see how dilated I was. And I was at a 4 at the appointment, which was awesome. And so my midwife was like, you should probably prepare to have a baby at some point today or tomorrow or soon, because that is, you're already starting to get dilated. I forget my exact like positionings, like +1 or whatever it was. But all of that, like, I think I was like 70% effaced, or things were happening. And so I was like, awesome, great. And I want to stop there too for a second, because I know there is so much that goes into labor and into delivery, and there's so many unknowns and uncontrollables. However, there are things that we can do to stack our deck in our favor, is the term I like to use, because again, we can't say this exercise or this movement is going to for sure help with things. But I do feel like a lot of my training and labor prep movements, especially, and I tell a lot of my clients this, my low squat holds, that I could hold a low squat for about 10 minutes leading up to delivery. And I really feel, again, there's no, I can't tell you definitively, I can't give you percentages, I can't, whatever. But I do really, truly feel like my deep squat holds helped her start engaging in like my pelvic bowl, like getting into the cervix and getting into positioning and like just making things start to happen earlier. I do feel that could have had a play in getting my labor started early without me feeling any symptoms of labor to start. So I just want to throw that in there. Obviously, I cannot tell you that squat holds made my labor better. I cannot tell you that exercise for sure gives you this specific outcome, but I will say it does stack the deck in your favor, and why not try whatever you can to make it happen. So anyways, so week 39 appointment, I was at a 4 dilation, and then I went home. I did a 30-minute workout circuit that I actually then created into my labor prep circuit. That's like a free PDF. So I'll actually put that link in the show notes here, because I ended up going into labor. So I just wanted you guys to have the movements as well. Again, not saying that those movements specifically are going to help, but they are great mobility, pelvic openers, all that good stuff that really helped for me. And so did that workout, kind of hung out the rest of the day, had my night clients. And then at night, there was no classes the next day because it was Thanksgiving. So this is Wednesday night, Thursday was Thanksgiving. And so normally Anthony and I would go to bed at 9 o'clock or so we could wake up to coach our clients. But we're like, let's watch a movie, stay up a little bit later just because we don't have class tomorrow. It's a holiday. And so we are just watching a movie, and while we were watching the movie, I was just bouncing on an exercise ball for literally the whole hour and a half of I forget what movie. It was like a Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Gyllenhaal, whatever, movie. The one where he's like a operator and he's like trying to stop it was like an intense movie. It was very good, but regardless, so I was like just kind of bouncing on my ball. Not doing like the soft pelvic tilts or anything, but just like straight up, just like bouncing however I felt like and just feeling good. And so it rolls around, I think the movie ended around like midnight or so. And right as we were getting ready for bed, I started to lay down. I feel like a sharper cramp, like a sharp pinching, but like muscly pinch. Which is something that I hadn't felt to that point. Like I've had Braxton Hicks contractions or like different, round ligament pains. Like it was nothing that I had felt before. And so I was like, oh, like that's interesting. And then it like kind of went away after a little bit. I was like, okay, I'll just go to bed. And then a few minutes later, it happened again. And I was like, I wonder like what this is. I was like, I should probably download a contraction timer or something. And so I download a contraction timer. My next one, I time out. I like click the start button when I start to feel that like pinchy, crampy. It was kind of like uterus-y, but like fallopian tubey. I don't even know how to describe it. It was like, but it was like sharper, like pinching. And I was kind of expecting more like full cramps, which I did then feel later. But at first they were like small, very small, sharp, pinchy things that I probably wouldn't even have noticed a ton if I wasn't just like laying down trying to go to bed. And so when I downloaded the contraction timer, I pressed start on my next one. This is probably like the third one, maybe. It lasted for a minute. The sharp pain that was not super sharp. It wasn't painful at the time. It was just like something. And then it stopped for 3 minutes. And then it started again at 1 minute, or at the end of 3 minutes for another minute. And then at 3 minutes in between. So I was already, from the very first contraction that I felt, it was 1 minute on, 3 minutes off, which is generally the point in time that they have you go to the hospital. And so I was expecting to like have to labor at home. At the time we were living at my parents' house. So I was like wanting to like, I don't know, go in the shower, just like stay away from everybody and like go downstairs. And I had this whole like thought process in my brain of like how I was going to labor at home. And it automatically started at 1 minute on, 3 minutes off, but it wasn't painful. And I was like kind of in denial. And I was like, okay, this is really weird, but like the app is already telling me after like 20 minutes of contractions that I should already be on the way to the hospital. But again, it's now Thursday night, like Thursday morning, I guess. So when I called my midwife, they didn't pick up right away because it was a holiday, it was midnight, it was short staffed, whatever. And so they called us back like 10, 20 minutes later, and they're like, yeah, like you can come in, just see like how things are happening, whatever. They weren't like very stressed about it. I wasn't feeling in pain. I wasn't stressed about it. So I was like still in denial. And so this is the part in the story where so it's Wednesday night, which is the biggest bar night
My siblings, so I have 3 younger siblings. I have 2 brothers and a sister. They were all out at the bars at like, I don't know. It was midnight at this point. So I'm like, oh, thank God. Like everybody's gone. Like if we need to go, like we can just go at our own leisure and nobody has to know. We can tell them all in the morning. And literally, as we were like packing up to go, all 3 of them and my sister's boyfriend, now husband at the time, barge in the door and they're like, oh my gosh, you're going into labor. And so I'm like, oh my God, please get away from me. And so my sister comes upstairs. She helps us a little bit. Anthony, my husband, was like, can you tell Katelyn to like get her to the hospital? Like she doesn't want to go. She's in denial, but like, I think we should go. So Rachel, who's 4 or 5 years younger than I am, she's like, Katelyn, I really think you should go, but she's like hammered at this point too. And I'm like, I cannot take anybody seriously. This is, I'm just like cracking up, but like, oh my gosh, what are the odds of this happening? And so we end up packing the bag and getting into the hospital or into the car. And so my first contraction or pinching that I felt started at like 12:30ish. And then I actually have my phone pulled up with the timestamps on some of the pictures that Anthony had taken throughout the night. My first picture is 1:59 a.m. and I'm laying in triage. So the hospital is about 20 minutes away. So at some point between 12:30 when I felt my first contraction and 2 a.m., I decided to then go and we get to the hospital. We're in triage. Also, I guess before we left, one of the reasons why I knew it was labor or something was starting because I did like start bleeding a little bit too. And I was like, okay, that's more sure sign that, things are happening. So I was like, okay, let's go. So we get to the hospital, we get to triage. This is now 2 a.m. Still like pretty fine. Like in the car ride, I remember feeling like uncomfortable, but they were more like just more dull, achy cramps. Like I could still talk through them. I could still, I don't know, manage myself through them. Nothing crazy. Triage, same thing. I was like pretty fine. Like it started gradually getting harder to manage the pain, but it still was like I could like talk through them and just relax through them and they were fine. And so my first picture in triage is at 2 a.m. And then I have another picture of me sitting up on the triage bed at 2:43 a.m. So this is 45 minutes after I got to triage. I'm still doing pretty dang good. This is now, I guess, 2 hours into since the first time I felt something. But I was still at the point where like I was smiling. I don't know. I was pretty fine during it. It wasn't like a great feeling, but nothing uncontrollable. And then I remember in triage, so I got there, they checked me. I was at a 6. And so they're like, you are in active labor, so we're good. Like they had to do all the blood work or whatever. It was also during COVID, so I had to take a COVID test. This was like the winter after COVID, so November 2021, which was a bad wave of sickness that maybe I'll get into later about how my husband got knocked on his ass for 3 weeks from COVID. So back to triage. So in triage, they check me. I'm at a 6. I'm in there for about 45 minutes or so. Actually, probably longer now that I'm looking at these timestamps, but hold on. In triage, I remember the doctor or whoever was in there at the time checking me in. She had left for a little bit and I like had to puke so bad. I was like, I don't know where to puke. There's no sink. So I threw up in the garbage can. I was like, I don't throw up. Like I'm not a thrower upper. And so when and then Anthony like opened the door, he's like, hey, can someone help? Like she just threw up. And so they came back in. They're like, you're probably like almost in transition or something. Like, okay. So then they get me from triage and then they moved me into the labor room. And I remember it was on our way to the labor and delivery room was the first time that I had to like stop and hold on to the wall and like let a contraction pass. And so that was probably 2.5 hours after that first like labor sign. So then in my camera roll, my next picture, we got into the labor and delivery room at 3:46 it's showing. And that's when I started like laboring in the room. So I guess I didn't realize that I was in triage from 2 a.m. till 3:45. Yeah, so about an hour and a half it took us to get from triage to the room. And so when we got to into the labor and delivery room, I remember being like, yeah, this sucks. I tried sitting on a exercise ball. That did not feel great. And then I knew I wanted to go in the shower. Like that was one of my thoughts or plans prior to labor. So they put me in the shower. Um, it felt fine in between, like it was a handheld. So I would like put the water like on my belly, like, and sit in between contractions. And then when I had the contraction, I would have to, like, I physically had to be standing up. Like I could not sit down. And then Anthony would put the water on my back. And I remember I was bleeding in the shower, like could kind of tell that things were happening. And then after about 30 minutes, they were like, hey, do you want us to break your water? And I'm like, they're like, it's going to be a lot more painful, but it could make things, go faster too if you want. I'm like, I'll just wait a few more minutes. Like, we'll just see. And then I remember when I was having a contraction, or I guess right after one of them, I asked the lady, I'm like, how am I going to know if I'm in like the pushing phase? Like, how am I supposed to know if I'm if I'm ready to get out of the shower essentially and start pushing? She's like, oh, you'll know, like, you'll get that reflex, and like, it'll take some time still, because this is only 30 minutes into being in the labor and delivery room. And then Anthony tells me after the fact that when I was in the shower, he could like see my stomach like seizing, like he could tell that I was having that urge to push, but he obviously didn't know either. And so after like 20 more minutes, maybe, so I was probably in the shower for like 30, 40 minutes. Again, I don't know the exact timing. But about that time, I was like, screw it. Like, let's break my water. Like, I'd just rather have this be over with. Like, I'm starting to get into a lot of pain. The water isn't helping. It felt better, I'm sure, than not being in the water, but regardless. So they get me out of the shower, put me on the bed, check me, and they're like, you're at a 9 and you should start pushing now. It's like, okay, so I was having that like fetal ejection reflex. Like, my water had broken the shower and I was already getting that like urge to push. I just didn't realize that that's what was happening. And so I'm on the bed, I'm facing backwards. So like they have the bed inclined. And so my hands were up and I was on my knees, but facing the bed. And like that wasn't feeling like super effective or great. I just like didn't really know what I was doing. I was like, okay, this is not working. And so they're like, okay, you can change positions or do whatever you feel. At this point, like I was in like labor land, like everything was so painful. And again, this is not to scare anybody who has not been in labor. But this is just from my experience. I didn't have an epidural. I didn't have any pain relief, anything. And so that's just how natural labor was feeling for me. I didn't feel the pressure feeling at this point. I was feeling like all like the most extreme period cramping in my stomach and like my core ever. I didn't have back labor, but regardless. And so that position wasn't feeling super great. So I flip around and I was like, okay, like I saw, people do low squat holds. And since I'm really good at low squat holds and I practice those a ton, maybe that's going to feel really good. So then I turn around, I try to go into a squat position for pushing, and I'm like, oh my God, absolutely not. It was like so much pressure for me. And like, I was like just straining just to sit up. I'm like, absolutely not. So I immediately lay down. And they're like, ma'am, you're going to have to find a position because your baby is coming. And like, you need to pick a spot. And so I was in a squat hold. So I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to like lay on my back and we'll go from there. And at the time, there wasn't as much talk or negative talk about like pushing on your back. It was just kind of the normal thing. So I laid on my back just because I thought it was natural. And for me, it honestly was like, that was my best position. I know there's now research and you might see all over the place, like pelvic floor PTs or, I don't know, just people in general say pushing on your back is the worst position, or it has a higher risk of things. And I'm sure it does. I know there's research. I haven't read the research. I'm not a labor and delivery nurse or, provider there. However, for me, laying on my back, I felt I could direct the most appropriate pressure or like have the best positioning, and I felt the most relaxed that I could. And so I decided to push in my back. And so as I was pushing, I had the natural tendency to kind of breathe and release as I was like pushing, and that felt good to me. But then my midwives in the room at the time told me to like take your big like inhale and like the purple pushing, so like you hold your breath and strain down. And so I did both of those, and I, I can't really tell you which one felt more effective or which one felt better. They honestly kind of felt the same to me. So from that perspective too, like maybe purple pushing is like what will feel good and most effective for you, or maybe you have to like exhale through it and like go from that angle. So moral of the story that I learned, at least from that angle, is there is no like right or wrong way, even if you feel like you're being feared into one way or the other. It's like when you're in labor and you're in that much pain, you're like, you kind of disregard things or don't remember things or whatever anyway. So just take everything for a grain of salt. This is my experience, and everybody can have different experiences around different ways to push and different positions and things like that. Um, and so I ended up pushing in that position. By the time I got to that position, I probably pushed for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I had 30 minutes of pushing total, but I think they were including my squat position and my backwards position at the same time. So I don't know. I don't really know how long I was there. I just was like, please God, get this over with. So I had my feet up pushing. And then once she like was almost there, I had 2 pushes and then she was out. And I have the picture right next to me, and that timestamp is 5:34 a.m. So we got into the labor delivery room at 3:45, and then I had her about less than 2 hours after getting into the labor room. So from start to finish, from the very first feeling, that like sharp pinching feeling, was at 12:30. She was born at 5:30, so like 5 hours total. But when I say like how long my labor was, I kind of count that from when I got into like out of triage. So like about 2 or 3 hours from there. So I was able to go unmedicated. I had no tearing. Amelia was great. She came right out, went on my chest, and we had a great time from there. I do remember feeling like everybody says, oh, they get this like huge wave of relief after the baby's here. Like, oh, everything, like all the pain goes away. And I didn't have like any of that. I was like, holy shit, that was like the most painful thing ever. I'm never doing that again. Like I remember being in labor, like pushing, and I'm like, I will never have another child. Like this is the worst pain I've ever been in. And so I had, from like a pain management perspective, I wish I would have done some things differently. And that's the main thing I want to change this next time. However, having only 2 or 3 hours of like labor pains, not tearing, having everything go super smooth, there was not one hiccup in the whole thing. Like that is something that I will forever cherish, and always like I hope that for my next pregnant or my next labor and delivery, for sure. So yeah, that was my labor experience. I guess one more piece too. I feel like one of the most painful parts for me was the frickin' IV that they put in my elbow, like the crease of my elbow. Like that made me, I know it wasn't I guess it wasn't even a needle. I guess it was like a tube that if they need to access it for medication or whatever, then they can have better access to it. But for whatever reason, like that, I had to keep my arm straight like the whole time. So like when I was trying to like hold Anthony's hand or like change positions, like I remember that being like a primary pain point. So that's another piece that I actually already asked about. I'm like, can I get that somewhere else? Because I had like no ability to move that arm, regardless if it was going to be painful or not. Like it felt so pinchy and icky, and I hate needles, so like it didn't really help. So that was like another piece that I did not care for. But regardless, so that was my labor experience. Again, I'm so thankful for being able to go naturally, or go unmedicated, I should say, and have that short of a labor. That's something that I wish for everybody who wants that kind of birth. Everybody wants a different type of birth. Everybody has different expectations and realities, and there's no way to guarantee things. I'm obviously hoping for a similar story the second time, but I'm also at the same point, like I told my midwife this past appointment that I had with her, I'm like, honestly, like if there's time and things aren't going super fast as they did with Amelia, like I am so not opposed to having an epidural, because I had zero like relief. I had zero like, oh, this is like a great, empowering, awesome experience. I was just like, I am in so much pain and this sucks. Like that that's what my mindset was like during it, and even like following after it. And then they do those freaking fundal massages where they like push out your blood clots, and that was just as painful as labor itself. But that was post delivery. That was like in the postpartum room. But I digress. So I don't even know where I was going with that now. Regardless. So that is Amelia's birth story. I plan to do a whole podcast on my second delivery story once that comes. So I'm due on January 6th, and it's end of November. So about 7 weeks, we'll see. Whenever I get that podcast episode out, we'll see how the two compare. But again, this was like Amelia's birthday celebration podcast of me talking about my labor experience with her. So with that, I will see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mother Figures podcast. If these episodes help or resonate with you in any way, it would be so helpful to the show if you could leave a review so we can get this into more moms' hands. And if you're looking for even more guidance and direction when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum fitness, I got you covered. My Mother Figures app subscription includes my Figure Pregnancy and Figure Postpartum workout programs, in addition to our general fitness programs. You'll get the day-by-day workouts you need to help you feel strong, pain-free, and labor-ready during pregnancy, and also the recovery, strength, and progressions you'll need to get back to the activities you love, full of strength and without symptoms after baby arrives. If you're local to the Brighton, Michigan area, I also host daily women's functional fitness classes, a 6-week postpartum return to fitness course, and pregnancy and postpartum consultation sessions. For those who are providers, coaches, or practitioners in the space, I hold a live Mother Figures certification course that equips you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to train and work with this population. For information on all of these services and programs, make sure to check out fitisgettingreal.com/moms or head to the show notes for the direct link. I'm so thankful that you tuned in today's episode, and I will catch you next time.